And now, boys and girls, it's time again for...
There's only one radio station that connects you to DePaul University.
I don't know. I just enjoy it.
Chicago.
My kind of town.
And the world.
I guess it's just because you're different somehow.
It's Radio DePaul.
You hear me? Hear me?
Chicago's College Connection.
Welcome, everybody, to episode number 9 of your weekly movie rewind here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. I am your host, as always, Garret, Neal, and this is going to be the last episode before spring break, where there will be a hiatus, or finals week next week, then spring break. It's going to have a few weeks hiatus. Unfortunately, I know you're all very sad. I'm sad because I very much enjoy bringing this show to you every week. I hope some of you guys enjoy watching it or listening to it as well. And as always, we'll start off with the box office and go into the news. Obviously, it was Oscar weekend last weekend, so big news week in that sense. We got a few trailers as well, and then a big release weekend as well. We got 4 wide release movies and a couple of limited release as well, which we don't usually touch on, but there was one specifically that I did want to mention before we end the show. So without further ado, let's get right into the box office. And we all knew it was gonna happen. Black Panther coming in at top the box office at number 1, third week in a row, $66.3 million. I had predicted around 60. I did blow those out of the water, but still holding very well for a movie of its size. Dropped just about 40%, becoming the 10th highest domestic grossing film of all time. Actually, it's 9th, just passing Beauty and the Beast, which had 504 million domestic. Black Panther is now at 506, and the one above it at that number 8 spot is going to be Rogue One at 532. So a little bit of a gap there, but I'm sure that Black Panther will be right up there in that area next week, and over the course of its domestic run, wouldn't be surprised if it ended up hitting that 600 mark and finished around where Star Wars The Last Jedi is, or Marvel's The Avengers. Last Jedi, 619 million. Marvel's The Avengers, 623 million. That's where I think it's going to end up, about in that 4, 5, 6 range. But we'll see how well it continues to hold, especially as it hasn't really had a lot of competition these last few weeks. And going forward, yeah, there's going to be some notable movies coming out that might subtract a little bit. It has started tracking a little bit below Star Wars The Last Jedi because The Last Jedi came out over the holidays. So last weekend or last week for The Last Jedi was a holiday week. People were not in school and people were just going around doing whatever, but it was just a regular week for Black Panther. So it's tracking a little bit behind, but I think still, once everything's said and done, it'll be around there, if I think a little bit above Last Jedi, and I think it'll very much approach Avengers. I don't know if it'll quite pass. It's also the third highest third weekend of all time, beating out the Avengers third week, which was 55.6 million. Beating that by quite a bit. That's what I expected was going to happen, that it was kind of beat those out, but couldn't quite catch Avatar, which had a $68.5 million third weekend, and then Star Wars Force Awakens just leagues above everything else with a $90 million third weekend. Of course, that was also a holiday weekend, so a little bit of that helped them get that much, but I mean, it wasn't even close. Then obviously I keep bringing up Avengers. Avengers is, and Jurassic World's another film that's kind of in this conversation, that had a $54.5 million opening weekend, and that is, or or not opening weekend, third weekend. And those are both summer movies. Jurassic World coming out in June, Avengers came out in May. So those do get also some benefit of, or I guess like for the weekend grosses, it's kind of a detraction that people aren't, at least kids, which is a big part of the audience for those films, not in school during the week, so they don't have to see it during the weekend. So that's a notable thing. If we want to look ahead to the top grossing fourth weekends, see where we think Jurassic World, where we think Black Panther might hit on that list. We got Avatar at number 1 at 50.3 million, then Star Wars Force Awakens at number 2 at 42.3 million, Avengers at 3 with 36.7 million, Jurassic World at number 4 at 29 million, and then Titanic 28.7 million coming at that number 5 spot. And I certainly believe that Black Panther, I mean, going into the fourth weekend, most films, again, they usually drop around the same amount that they have been the first couple weeks, maybe a little bit more, but I would still expect it to drop kind of around 42 or so, 43%. So I think it's still going to certainly get over that 30 million. I think it'll finish probably in that 4th spot. I think 36. If it beat Avengers for that third highest fourth weekend, that would be very impressive to me, hitting that 36 million mark. I think it's probably going to be around 32, 33, especially since there are a lot of new movies coming out next weekend. But speaking of new movies, we did have some this weekend that came in at the number 2 and number 3 spot. We had Red Sparrow coming in at number 2 at 17 million. I saw that one this weekend. Wasn't my favorite. It's a mystery film, but it doesn't rely on the action. It relies very much on kind of the talking and double crossing side of things, which I'm an action fan, so that doesn't play well to me. But I think even in what it does do, the mystery is not conveyed very well. And it's pretty obvious, but the thing is that they don't really ask you the question that they answer at the end of the movie until the end of the movie. So you just kind of have all these clues with nothing to do with them, and then they kind of reveal it at the end, which works. But I always prefer my mysteries where you give the question at the beginning, and then you make the clues during the film a little less obvious. So I'm thinking of that question I'm trying to find in the film. What am I supposed to be looking for? That's what I look out for. It's also a very brutal film, both in terms of its sexual and its violent content. Not an action movie, but there are some brutal murders, a lot of blood in that one. Death Wish coming in at number 3 with 13 million. This one also had a lot of brutal deaths. Of course, it's directed by Eli Roth, known for his horror stuff, so that's kind of to be expected. This one rose a little bit of controversy because it's very much supporting kind of the right to, definitely the right to bear arms, but the right for people to take the law into their own hands, with just being able to get a gun, even like no matter the type of gun, and just go out and do whatever they wish, as long as the people they kill are bad people. So that was a little bit, definitely people falling on either side of that. If you go against that, not going to enjoy that film, because you will not be able to ethically excuse anything that Bruce Willis does during that film. Outside of that, it was a pretty fun, I don't know about fun, but the action was done decently well. It was a fairly average kind of action movie. You know, I was never super bored while watching it, but you know, it's something that I'm not going to remember. I barely remember it now, even though I just saw it on Sunday. Just because I can obviously still remember some of the key scenes, but no specifics, just because it's not a very memorable film, doesn't really do anything groundbreaking. Coming in at number 4, we do have Game Night, holding very well, just dropped not that much from its opening weekend, only 38.8%. So, I mean, that's kind of around what Black Panther dropped from its first to second week. So, obviously, Game Night didn't make as much money, so you It's not expected to drop as much as Black Panther, but still a good hold. I mean, you think some of the good word of mouth, you'd like to at least think that good word of mouth is helping it out. And then rounding out the top 5, we have Peter Rabbit still hanging in there, dropped 21% in its 4th weekend. Also made $10 million. Game night 10.4. Peter Rabbit about $10 million even. Didn't see Peter Rabbit. Nothing to say about that. And as always, we'll take a look at that per theater, which was dominated by Black Panther with $16,236 in 4,084 theaters. It's a force, man, and it's cool to see. It's always fun just kind of watch just huge phenomenons, box office phenomenons like this. And one other thing I did want to touch on about Black Panther before we move on to that news section is some of the international numbers. It's about at 900 million internationally, so you'd expect it. It's in a few weeks. It's probably gonna pass that 1 billion gross mark. And it opened in Japan this weekend to 2.4 million, and it's going to open in China this coming weekend. So that will be very interesting to see how it does there, and that'll also probably be a big boon in its international gross, and might, depending on how well it does, it might help bump it up into that 1 billion worldwide gross total. All right, that's what I got for the box office this week. Gonna roll right along into the Oscars. It was an interesting night, interesting because I guess maybe it wasn't interesting. I mean, there was no real surprises in the awards. I still kind of thought that 3 Billboards was gonna win Best Picture, even though Shape of Water had been building up a lot of momentum in the last couple weeks heading into the Oscars, but I liked Shape of Water a lot more, so I'm not mad, and I'm not even surprised that it ended up winning Best Picture. Brought home a few other awards as well. Gary Oldman, Best Actor, I think we all saw that coming. Frances McDormand, Best Actress, also that coming. Allison Janney, Best Supporting Actress, also that coming. Sam Rockwell getting that Best Supporting Actor. It was all pretty predictable. I think one that did stick out to me was the shorts, which was something that I don't usually pay attention to, but I actually did see all the live action and animated shorts. And the live action ones, I really thought that God, I can't remember the name. DeKalb Elementary. There we go. I thought that one was going to win. I really enjoyed that one. I enjoyed all of the live action ones, but I thought that one was the favorite, and I thought that was going to win. The Blind Child ended up taking home the victory, which I certainly, like I said, I enjoyed all of them. I thought that one was very well done as well. If you haven't seen it, it tells the story of a young blind girl who is in a family where they are all hearing capable, and they hire a aide to help teach this child sign language, but they kind of want her to learn lip reading, even though the aide doesn't think that's really as helpful. And the family, it's really shown that they don't really, or they aren't around her, the child, that much, and they're busy doing their own things. And the mom always says, oh, well, she can follow what we're doing, but it shows that she really can't. And it's very interesting to have one shot where you just are seeing things from her point of view, and there's just literally no sound, which is it's just a quick glimpse into what that would be like. And it's you just see this family sitting around a dinner table, and you have no idea what's happening. And it was very moving. The only thing was that it's a very much a nitpick, but when I liked all of them so much, it was kind of something that set it back for me, was that at the end, then they're like, such and such percentage of deaf children are born into families of hearing each year, and there's a lack of support in the school systems for, and then I'm like, I got all of that from this film. I didn't know the percentage numbers and such, but I just thought that putting that text at the end of the movie was just really just like unnecessary and really bashing it overhead and turning it into this really preachy moment that it didn't need to have, because I thought that message that we need more support and in that there's there's a population of children born into these hearing capable families that just are not supported as well as they could be. I got that from the film, and I didn't think they needed to add that at the end. Big nitpick. Still enjoyed it overall, but that was something I thought set it back. But animated shorts, Kobe Bryant won for the Love of the Game was, I believe, was the name of the short, or no, it was Dear Basketball. And that was just easily my least favorite out of all the animated shorts. That's not to say it was bad. I still enjoyed it, and I love basketball. I'm a Celtics fan, so maybe I'm a little biased against Kobe. Actually, I know I am. But still felt like they just kind of handed it to him because, like, hey, Kobe played for the Lakers, like L.A., Hollywood. Let's do it. He's a big name. This will be fun. Because it was just, the animation style was cool. It was pencil drawn. It was just kind of always moving. And, John Williams did the score, which was just extremely dramatic for what's really just Kobe Bryant reading a letter that he wrote to basketball about his love for the game, which I appreciate. And the animation was well done, but I think when it just is very subjective, but comparing it to a lot of the other ones, there were just so many more that four other ones that I just liked the style of so much more. And Kobe actually does a very respectable job of putting some emotion into his narration, but just when you compare it to some of the performers in all the other shorts, it falls short to me completely. And I would have loved to see Garden Party win. I thought the animation in that was phenomenal. Looks picturesque, and just it was extremely funny seeing like these frogs just like bounce around randomly in this abandoned mansion, but then also the short tells like a story kind of through these animals, but they never really tell it kind of explicitly until the last couple seconds, and just being able to kind of put that together as I watched it. I loved it. There was also Revolting Rhymes, which if any of you read that Roald Dahl poem collection growing up, you'll recognize that name, which, hey, Roald Dahl, great writer. But I appreciated, this was actually originally released for the BBC. This is the longest one. Most of the animated shorts were about 5-7 minutes. This one was 30, or I think it was like 22 or 23 actually, but because it was a short, part one of a short series, a 2-part series made for the BBC that actually came out on the BBC last year, and it was so cool, just the stories. I mean, I felt like a lot of that was just based off the stories that Roald Dahl had written in the poems, but the way it connected all of them and its times to use lines from the poems and to not use them were well done, and it was really cool. It's the only thing I hated about that was that it ended on such a cliffhanger. I'm like, I need to see part 2 now. Still haven't, but those are the two things that really noticed. I mean, if we want to talk about the speeches, obviously the Emma Stone thing is kind of making the rounds right now. I think it's been established that probably wasn't the greatest thing for her to say. Announcing the Best Director nominees, she said here are the 4 male nominees and Greta Gerwig, which people are pointing out like, hey, like, still Guillermo del Toro was the 5th Latino nominee, and Jordan Peele was the 5th African American nominee. So I mean, you can't knock them for that. Like that's notable and very notable, and I don't know. I kind of come on the side that that's probably not the best, and it's not like anyone. I can't. They all. I feel like they all deserve to be there too. Like you can't. I mean, obviously Get Out was a phenomenal movie. Guillermo del Toro won, and Shape of Water was getting a ton of attention, and I loved that movie, and I don't think you could say that Christopher Nolan didn't deserve to get nominated either. I mean, Dunkirk is a very much directed film, like, I mean, in between, like, how he messes with time, which he always does, and that kind of stuff. It's like, I don't really feel like any of them did not deserve to be nominated versus, someone else. I'm sure there are people out there that could be, but and I get that, like, there's a whole, like, systemic problem as sort of like how many women are actually able to be in the position to direct films and such like that. But I think it's been established that wasn't the most tonally sensitive thing to say. But kind of going off that political remark, the ratings for this Oscars dropped for the fourth consecutive year, and they dropped below 30 million viewers for, I'm not sure when the last time it was, but I found all the way back to 2001, and I none of those dropped below 30 million. And one of the biggest factors that people always bring up is the idea that it's the correlation between the box office hits and how many people watch the Oscars. The highest ever ratings, I believe, were when Titanic was nominated and won. Some of the highest ratings since 2001 are Return of the King, when that won. Obviously, that was a huge box office success. Also in 2014, when 12 Years a Slave won, but also Gravity was nominated that year. And Ellen DeGeneres was hosting, and host is certainly another factor, which is why often the Oscars bring people back, because they try and bring people in that bring in viewers, because it's not as much as a factor as it used to be, but still people will tune in for some people that they enjoy. And so those are two factors, but it's not a direct correlation. It's not every time there's a big budget movie or a movie that makes a lot of money is nominated that the Oscars spike in viewers. It's often, like, again, 2009 was another one that, even though Hurt Locker won, which made very little money, one of the lowest earners among Best Picture winners of recent years, Avatar was nominated. So that was a big, decent spike. It's not like directly. There are some years where it kind of spikes, but there's not really anything that made a ton of money. And there are some years where there's a few things that made a decent amount of money, but it's still kind of average-ish viewers. But I think one of the other things outside of the hosts and the movies is people are bringing up the politics, and the fact that the politics are brought up in nearly every speech, and every there's all the jokes and such. And I think obviously a lot of the people that disagree with kind of the left-leaning side that a lot of that the tone of the Oscars went towards. I haven't watched all the speeches, so I can't say that, like, everything was that way, but certainly on the most part they go left. That a lot of people on the other side don't really want to watch that stuff. There's also that I think, even I was reading the comments on a video about this earlier, and people were saying that, like, look, man, like, I agree with everything you're saying, but I just don't want to hear about it every 5 minutes for the next 3 hours. I'm just kind of tired about it. I want to break from that. And I think in this environment with social media, where, like, often in the past, people might even tune in to hear these celebrities' views on these things because that was the only time they could. But now with social media, celebrities always have their views out there, and they can put their views out on anything at any time. Some people might just be a little bit tired of hearing it, and they might want to break. Also, probably the most basic answer is just that these things are 3+ hours long, and it's mostly just people thanking other people, and people, tapping each other on the back, clapping, saying, like, hey, good job. You did a good job. Oh, thanks. You did a good job too. And it's not really fun. And there's very rarely any super memorable speeches. People just want to hear who won. And in a day where, people want to get everything online, and there's a bunch of people that don't even have cable because they don't usually need it, so they can't watch it that way. Things are streamed. People are used to just watching things in the comfort of, their home on Netflix, such like that. They don't want to, turn into TV, have to deal with commercials, that kind of stuff. So people aren't going to want to do that, and they're doing an event where every time someone comes up to do a speech, they're like, all right, time to pull out my phone or go on my laptop. Like, at that point, people are just going to go on their laptop, and the Oscars can't compete for that attention anymore because they only keep it for those 5 seconds when they're like, and the winner is, Darkest Hour for whatever, best makeup. Then people just don't want to watch that anymore. So it's a combination of all those things. I think I saw I was watching a bunch of videos on that sort of stuff, and I just wanted to make sure I got my take out there on that. Whew! Moving on. Got two more smaller news items. During the Oscars, there was... God, I hate they do this, man. They did this for Mission Impossible during the Super Bowl too, but during the Oscars, they released a teaser for the teaser of Mary Poppins Returns. They're like, hey, watch this online, but we're just going to give you a little bit of it now. And I was like, oh my God, really? But I did obviously go online and watch it. We got Emily Blunt as Mary Poppins. We got Lin-Manuel Miranda in there. That's fine. It's, part of my whole love-hate relationship with these Disney reboots that each one of these films that they're rebooting are classic films that, most of them, obviously one of the ones, the biggest ones is going to be The Lion King in terms of this, and Beauty and the Beast was one as well, where it's just, what can you really improve on from the original that was already so good? And Beauty and the Beast certainly made some changes, and while I don't think it was as good as the original, I did enjoy certainly the Beauty and the Beast live action remake, and I think there's some of the live action remakes have been very good. Jungle Book was another one. Some of them have been kind of okay. Pete's Dragon was like, yeah, it was all right. Cinderella was, it was all right. It's just kind of, that's why it's like, I don't know why, I know why they're making them, but it kind of bothers me that they are making them, because for a lot of these classic films, there's no real reason to outside of money, because the original films are classic and perfect films. It's not like, oh, it was good, but it would have been even better if such and such, because there are films like that. No, they're just great films in their own right, and then they're remaking them. But then at the same time, some of them are different takes that are still enjoyable. Maybe not quite as good, but still enjoyable new takes. So I'm not going to judge it just yet. Emily Blunt, I just don't see how she's going to be able to compete with Julie Andrews. Lin-Manuel Miranda, can't be a worse singer than, I can't remember his name, but I'm going to look it up. Obviously, we've seen him sing Lin-Manuel Miranda in Hamilton, In the Heights, and kind of briefly in Moana. His voice isn't really his moneymaker. It's more his writing skills. But that Dick Van Dyke, there we go. Didn't even have to look it up. It came back to me. That accent was just, it's infamous now. So I don't think he's gonna can't do worse than that. Or let's hope so. And then we also got one other trailer for Christopher Robin. Obviously, the kid in Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh, actually, I didn't know, but maybe some people knew about this. I didn't know about this until recently, but there was a 2011 animated Winnie the Pooh film that was actually supposed to be pretty darn good. Obviously, there's been a big handful of animated Winnie the Pooh films, but I think that was the most recent one. It's actually supposed to be pretty good, and maybe I'll check that out before I see this. But this one looks like we got Ewan McGregor, who I'm a huge fan of, as Christopher Robin, who's now grown up, and Pooh finds him, and who knows what happens. We don't really know the plot, but hey, color me intrigued. I'm always down for some Winnie the Pooh action, and it's got Ewan McGregor. Again, it's the same deal as Mary Poppins. It's like, how will it hand up against some of the some of the animated films of yore that I remember from my childhood. Who knows? But we don't really know too much about it. So that's all I wanted to touch on for news. We're going to take a break. I'm going to get some water, and then we will come back with our handful of new releases coming up this weekend. I'll tell you all about what to expect, so stay right here. I'm Garret Neal. This is your weekly movie rewind, and you're listening on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
Like it.
Hey.
What's up, y'all? This is Jeremiah.
What's up? This is Steve-O from Jackass. You're listening to Radio DePaul.
Radio DePaul.
Radio DePaul is Chicago's College Connection.
All right, I am hydrated and ready to go. Welcome back to your weekly movie rewind. I am Garret Neal, and you're listening, of course, to Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection, but I'm sure you knew that. So we got a handful of new releases coming in this week. I think we got four wide release films, as well as one limited release. And the most notable of the new releases, wide releases, is a Wrinkle in Time, of course, based off the book that some of you may remember from your childhood. I remember the book, never read it, but it certainly came up in conversations, for whatever that means. It's directed by Ava DuVernay, who directed Selma, and it stars one Oprah Winfrey, Reese Witherspoon, and Mindy Kaling's in it as well. Chris Pine, Zach Galifianakis, Michael Pena, whole host of stars in this one. Also a bunch of child actors, because it's a children's film with children in the main characters. Just quick IMDb overview of the plot. After the disappearance of her scientist father, Chris Pine, three peculiar beings send Meg, her brother, and her friend to space in order to find him. Yeah, I would try and give like a slightly more detailed plot rundown, but I didn't read the book, so I don't really know what it's going to be about. There have been a bunch of screenings for this film, but the embargo for the release of reviews isn't until the 8th, the day before the film comes out. Not showing a ton of confidence. This doesn't really mean anything, but the film has a 4.3 on IMDb somehow. I don't know how much you can really go into that. I don't think it could be that bad. I think like a 6 at worst with the talent in this, but we'll see. I think that one's certainly a favorite. Maybe not a favorite, but I think this is definitely the first film that's really had the possibility of overtaking Black Panther, with just how many notable names are in this, as well as the at least semi-recognizable name of the film. Even if it gets bad reviews, I don't think that maybe won't stop it from getting a big opening, but it will certainly dampen it. And I think if it does get bad reviews, like a 4.3, then it will not beat Black Panther, and then I think it'll come up to Pacific Rim 2, which I think at that point, even if that film gets terrible reviews, then it'll still beat it because of its brand recognition, and how, like, at that point Black Panther will be will be lower. It'll be the bar will be low to beat, because I mean, Pacific Rim, that kind of movie is just kind of, the first one just hit on that line where it was dumb, but like dumb in the right ways. But it's so easy to make those kind of films and have it just be like the most uninteresting thing to watch. But we're not talking about Pacific Rim, because that's not coming out for 2 more weeks, I think. The 23rd is, I believe, when that comes out. But don't quote me on that, because I'm not looking at the releases right now. But That's A Wrinkle in Time. We got another film that I am extremely excited for, called The Hurricane Heist, directed by Rob Cohen, who directed Fast and Furious, I want to say. Maybe. Yes, he did. He directed The Fast, the Furious, the original back in the day. Also directed Triple X. Yeah, great film. And directed The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, which is the worst of the Mummy films. Not a fan. I love the other two, but that one didn't do it for me. Oh, and he was a producer for Running Man. Way to go. I love Running Man. That's an old Arnold Schwarzenegger film where he's on a game show, and it's like all the great movie just because it has Arnold in it. Not just because it has Arnold in it. It's enjoyable. But now he's bringing us what is sure to be a classic film, Hurricane Heist. Thieves attempt a massive heist against the U.S. Treasury as a Category 5 hurricane approaches one of its mint facilities. Oh my God. I mean, someone was pitching a movie to Sci-Fi, be like, you guys like Sharknado, right? You guys like Giant Squid versus Giant Shark versus Giant Octopus. Now we got Hurricane Heist, and someone was like, wait, no. We need to put this in theaters. Like, yeah. This was also definitely one where they thought of the name first, movie second. So you know it's going to be good. Because it's like, all right, guys, there's a Category 5 hurricane approaching. That means it's time to rob somebody. It's like what? That makes no sense. No sense at all. This movie is going to suck, 100% guaranteed. Jot it down. It's going to be awful, and that's why I'm super excited to watch it, because I think it's going to be so bad. It's got to be one of those so bad it's good movies. If this film is boring, they failed on every level. Even if it's terrible, but it's still like fun to laugh at, then it's like, okay, that's kind of, it's what I expect. But like, if it's just boring, how are you going to have a film called Hurricane Heist about people deciding to rob the treasury, one of the mints, during a hurricane, rather than just being safe and robbing something? Like, how do you make that boring? How? You can't. I would think. It's got Toby Kebbell in it. He's mostly known for his motion capture work. He did the motion capture work for Kong and Kong Skull Island, also for Koba in the Planet of the Apes series. Also was Doctor Doom in Fan Four Stick, if you saw that, which I'm sorry if you did. But mostly he's just known for his motion capture work, and a bunch of other people that I don't recognize in this movie. So I don't think that's going to open up very well, but I think it's going to be hilarious. So hopefully it doesn't let down there. Next one, release number 3, we got Gringo, a dark comedy mixed with white knuckle action and dramatic intrigue, explores the battle of survival for businessman Harold Soyunka, played by David Oyelowo, when he finds himself crossing the line from law-abiding citizen to wanted criminal. This one stars Charlize Theron, David Oyelowo, as said, who I actually have not seen in anything else. He's in Selma. He plays Dr. King. I should probably know that. He was also in The Queen of Catway, which was a Disney film that came out last year, which got some notoriety. So he's someone I should know, really, is what I was off there. But also has Joel Edgerton, who is also in Red Sparrow, Charlize Theron, no one else Amanda Seyfried's in it. No one else that I recognize. And this one, action comedy with some crime stuff. It's looked fairly interesting from the trailers. I don't think it's gonna make that much money. I think it's really still just between Wrinkle in Time and Black Panther, but it's there. So who knows? And then the final wide release, we have Strangers Pray at Night, the sequel to Strangers, which I did not see. It's a horror film. Here we go. IMDb rundown, because I don't really know that much about this film. A family staying in a secluded mobile home park for the night are visited by 3 masked psychopaths to test their every limit. That was a terrible evil laugh. That was a bad read, man. I got to get better at these. I got like a dramatic stroke in me somewhere. I got to really be able to bring it out for these readings. I've been doing a terrible job of doing a disservice to you guys. I'm sorry. I need to bring it. No, it's not gonna happen right now. I'm not gonna do it. But next time there's a horror movie coming out, I'm gonna have it down. It's gonna be ready. Yeah, it's a horror movie. I'm sure it has its audience. Horror movies always generally do pretty well. I didn't pull up what the last one made. So, because I'm sure that would be a decent. That's always the best place to go for comps. Looks like the first one made. Wow, this came out in 2008. Wow, that's a long time ago. Made $52 million and opened to $20 million. $20.9 million. Its opening weekend, which was, I don't know, I can't see. This is the kind of stuff I need to look up. But we'll see. I don't know. I'd wonder, even how much connection it has to the first one. I mean, it's a long time. Doesn't seem to have it's different director, different actors. I don't know. That's just strange. You got to think this movie has been in production heck for a long time. You got to think that's just, I don't know. That's kind of random if I'm being honest. But horror movies generally at least do decently. I'm sure it'll get 10, 12, 13, 14. And then the last one, I just want to touch on the limited release film Thoroughbreds, directed by Corey Finley. This one has had some good screenings. It's got an 81 Metascore, 7 IMDb, so that kind of tells you kind of where that film is. Liked by the critics, maybe not quite as much by the fans. But yeah, we got a screening for that here for Radio DePaul, and I can't go, which kind of stinks, but it's supposed to be pretty good. Check that out if it's near you. And that's gonna wrap it up here. I need to come up with a good closing thing, because it's so abrupt in and out. But yeah, this was one of the longer episodes. Went on that little rant about the Oscars, and then had a lot of new releases to go through. Hopefully, I didn't make it too boring. I'm working on it. Thank you very much for joining me through this adventure. I'm gonna be off for a few weeks, but hopefully I will come back and be better than ever, and you guys will be right here with me, and it'll be fun. Hopefully we can get some guests on next quarter. It's going to be a good time, but thank you once again for listening, for any episodes you did listen to. I am Garret Neal, saying goodbye for the last time for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you were listening to episode 9 of your weekly movie rewind here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.